The first time Ambassador Crickstell saw a dog, she screamed. The sound that came from her throat was not the dignified communication befitting a senior diplomat of the Valanthe hegemony. It was raw terror. The creature had 4 legs, a wet nose, and teeth that looked like they could tear through metal plating. "That is Max," said the human named Dr. Sarah Chen, her voice calm and warm. "He is a golden retriever. He will not hurt you." Crickstell pressed herself against the wall of the human embassy on Earth. Her blue skin had gone pale, almost white. Her 4 eyes blinked rapidly as the creature called Max walked toward her with its tongue hanging out of its mouth. Its tail moved back and forth in a way that seemed unnatural. "Why is it shaking its back end?" Crickstell demanded. "Is it preparing to attack?" Dr. Chen laughed, but it was not a mean laugh. "No, Ambassador, that is called wagging. Dogs do that when they are happy. Max is happy to meet you." This made no sense to Crickstell. On her home world, when an animal showed its teeth and approached you, it meant death was coming. She had grown up learning to fear such things. Every instinct in her body told her to run. But she was an ambassador. She had survived 3 wars, 2 assassination attempts, and a very bad marriage. She would not run from a fluffy creature that was now sitting at her feet and looking up at her with big brown eyes. "What does it want?" she asked. "He wants you to pet him," Dr. Chen said. "Here, like this." The human woman bent down and ran her hand over the creature's head and back. Max closed his eyes and his tail wagged even faster. Crickstell watched this display with great confusion. "You touch it, with your bare hands." "Of course, dogs are our companions. They have been with humans for over 15,000 years. They are family." The word family hit Crickstell harder than she expected. She had not seen her own family in 6 cycles. The war with the Drethani had separated them across 3 star systems. She did not know if her clutch sister was alive or dead. The stress of her position had been eating at her soul for so long that she had forgotten what peace felt like. Max made a small sound, something between a bark and a whine. He pushed his nose against Crickstell's leg. Without thinking, she reached down and touched his head. The fur was soft, softer than anything she had ever felt. It was warm too, filled with life. Max leaned into her touch, and she felt something inside her chest begin to crack open. It was a feeling she did not have a word for in her language. "He likes you," Dr. Chen said softly. Crickstell did not respond. She was too busy kneeling on the floor of the human embassy, running her fingers through golden fur, while tears she did not understand fell from all 4 of her eyes. That was the beginning. The news of what happened spread through the diplomatic community faster than light could travel. Ambassador Crickstell, the Iron Lady of the Valanthe hegemony, had been seen crying while touching a small Earth mammal. Some saw this as weakness. Others saw it as something else entirely. Within a month, 3 more alien diplomats had requested meetings with dogs. Within a year, the number was in the hundreds. The humans did not understand what was happening at first. They had brought dogs to their embassy the same way they brought coffee machines and comfortable chairs. Dogs were just part of human life. They had not expected aliens to react so strongly. Dr. Sarah Chen was the first to figure it out. She was a xenobiologist who had been studying alien psychology for 20 years. She had noticed something strange about nearly every alien species humanity had contacted. None of them had companion animals. The Valanthe had war beasts, animals bred for violence and kept in cages. The Drethani had livestock, creatures raised for food and leather. The Corvani had pest creatures, small things that lived in their walls and stole their food. But none of them had friends that walked on 4 legs and slept at the foot of their beds. Humans were different. Humans had spent thousands of years forming bonds with other species. They had dogs and cats and horses and birds. They talked to these animals, loved them, mourned them when they died. This was considered extremely strange by galactic standards. Dr. Chen wrote a paper about her observations. She called it The Human-Canine Bond and Its Potential Applications in Xenopsychological Therapy. The paper was read by 17 people when she first published it. 2 of those people were her mother and her thesis advisor. Then Ambassador Crickstell gave a speech to the Galactic Council. "I have spent 40 cycles serving the hegemony," Crickstell said, standing before representatives of 300 species. "I have given everything to my people, my time, my health, my family. I forgot how to feel anything but duty and fear. Then I met a dog named Max." The council chamber was silent. No one had ever heard the Iron Lady speak like this. "These humans have something we do not have," she continued. "They have learned to share their hearts with creatures that ask nothing in return but love. I did not know such a thing was possible. I did not know I needed it until a golden retriever put his head in my lap and looked at me like I was the most important being in the universe." She paused, gathering herself. "I am recommending that the Valanthe hegemony establish a formal program to study and import Earth dogs for therapeutic purposes. I believe this could help our soldiers, our diplomats, our citizens who have been broken by war and loss. I believe dogs could heal us." The reaction was mixed. Some representatives laughed, others looked confused, a few looked angry, but many, especially those whose species had been fighting wars for generations, looked thoughtful. The Corvani delegate, a small creature covered in gray fur, raised one of its 6 arms. "How do we know these dogs are safe? They have teeth. They could attack." Dr. Chen, who had been invited to attend as an expert, stepped forward. "Dogs are not predators to be feared. They are partners. They were domesticated from wolves, yes, but thousands of years of breeding have made them loyal and gentle. A properly trained dog will die to protect its family. They do not attack without cause." "But they are still animals," the Corvani said. "How can an animal provide what you call therapy?" Dr. Chen smiled. "That is the remarkable thing about dogs. They do not judge. They do not care if you are rich or poor, powerful or weak, beautiful or scarred. They love you simply because you exist. For beings who have spent their lives being judged and evaluated and found wanting, that kind of unconditional acceptance can be transformative." The debate continued for hours. Many species were skeptical. The idea of bringing an alien animal into their homes, their hospitals, their military bases seemed insane. But Ambassador Crickstell's testimony was powerful, and she was not the only one. Over the following months, dozens of aliens who had interacted with dogs came forward to share their stories. A Drethani war commander who had not slept through the night in 30 years found peace with a German shepherd named Bruno. A Corvani scientist who had suffered terrible anxiety discovered she could think clearly when a beagle named Penny sat on her lap. A young Valanthe soldier who had lost his entire unit in battle found the will to live again when a Labrador puppy named Hope licked his face every morning. The evidence was overwhelming. Dogs were not just pets, they were medicine. The Galactic Council debated for 3 standard cycles. They consulted experts, reviewed data, argued about regulations and safety protocols. Some species refused to participate, calling the entire program dangerous human sentiment. But in the end, the vote was clear. By a margin of 212 to 88, the Galactic Council approved the establishment of the Interspecies Companion Program. Earth dogs would be bred, trained, and distributed to any species that requested them. The program would be overseen by human handlers initially, but the goal was to eventually train aliens to care for dogs themselves. Humanity had contributed many things to galactic civilization: technology, art, music, questionable food items that other species found either delicious or horrifying. But dogs were different. Dogs were not a product or a creation. Dogs were family, and humanity was sharing them with the stars. Dr. Sarah Chen was appointed as the first director of the Interspecies Companion Program. On the day she accepted the position, Max sat beside her. his tail wagging as cameras from 100 worlds recorded the moment. "We never expected this," she said in her acceptance speech. "We never thought that our oldest friends would become ambassadors for humanity throughout the galaxy, but maybe we should have. Dogs have always brought out the best in us. Now they will bring out the best in everyone." In the back of the audience, Ambassador Crickstell watched with all four eyes wet with tears she no longer tried to hide. She had a new companion now, a golden retriever named Saul who had been trained specifically for her. Saul pressed against her leg, sensing her emotion, offering comfort without words. "Good boy," she whispered, and meant it with her whole heart. The program was just beginning, but already the galaxy was changing. Slowly, one wagging tail at a time, Earth dogs were teaching the universe how to love. The training facility was located in what used to be Kansas. The land was flat and wide, perfect for running and playing and learning. Dr. Chen had chosen this location carefully. Dogs needed space, and so did the alien handlers who came to learn. The first class of alien handlers arrived 6 months after the program was approved. There were 20 of them, representing 12 different species. They stood in a loose cluster at the edge of the main training field, watching as human trainers worked with a group of puppies. Krathvorn was the largest of the aliens. He was a Drethani, standing nearly 3 meters tall, with thick gray skin and arms that could bend steel. He had been a commander in the Drethani military for 50 years. He had killed more enemies than he could count. He had watched friends die and pretended it did not hurt because that was what warriors did. Now he was staring at a tiny puppy with floppy ears and feeling something he did not understand. "They are so small," he said, his voice a deep rumble. "How do they survive?" The human trainer, a young man named Jake, grinned. "They're tough little guys, actually. Give them a few months and they'll be running you ragged. This one here is Cooper. He's a chocolate lab, best retrievers in the business." Cooper wobbled over to Krathvorn on unsteady legs. The puppy was maybe 12 weeks old, small enough to fit in one of the Drethani's massive hands. Cooper sniffed at Krathvorn's feet, then sat down and looked up at him with big brown eyes. "What does it want?" Krathvorn asked, echoing Ambassador Crickstell's words from months before. "He wants to say hello," Jake said. "Go ahead, pick him up. Gently, though, puppies are fragile." Krathvorn had handled weapons of incredible destructive power. He had piloted warships through asteroid fields. He had never been so careful as he was when he reached down and lifted the tiny brown puppy into his arms. Cooper immediately began licking Krathvorn's face. The Drethani's skin was rough and scarred, but the puppy did not seem to care. He licked and wiggled and made small, happy sounds. The other alien handlers watched in fascination as the giant warrior stood frozen, holding a puppy that was methodically covering his face with saliva. "I do not know what to do," Krathvorn admitted. Jake laughed. "That's okay. Nobody does at first, just let him do his thing. He's bonding with you." "Bonding?" "Yeah, dogs bond with their people. Once Cooper decides you're his person, he'll follow you anywhere. He'll protect you, comfort you, play with you. He'll be your best friend for his whole life." Krathvorn looked down at the puppy in his arms. Cooper had stopped licking and was now curled against the Drethani's chest, his eyes half closed in contentment. "His whole life," Krathvorn repeated. "How long is that?" 10 to 15 years, depending on the breed and how well he's cared for." Something flickered across Krathvorn's face. It might have been sadness, or it might have been something else. "That is not very long." "No," Jake agreed. "It's not, but dogs don't think about that. They just love you for every moment they're alive. They don't waste time worrying about the future. They're always present, always here, always happy to see you." The training continued for 3 months. The alien handlers learned how to feed dogs, groom them, train them, and understand their body language. They learned that a wagging tail usually meant happiness but could sometimes mean anxiety or uncertainty. They learned that dogs communicated through their eyes, their ears, their posture, and their voices. They learned that each dog was an individual with its own personality, preferences, and quirks. They also learned something else, something that the humans had known for thousands of years but had not thought to teach directly. They learned that caring for another being changed you. Krathvorn had spent his entire adult life as a warrior. He had been trained to ignore his emotions, to suppress his weaknesses, to present a face of stone to his enemies and allies alike. He had been so good at this that he had forgotten how to feel anything at all. Cooper changed that. The puppy demanded attention. He demanded play and cuddles and walks and treats. He demanded that Krathvorn acknowledge his existence, respond to his needs, engage with his joy. It was impossible to maintain emotional distance from a creature that was constantly wagging its tail and bringing you chewed-up toys. 3 weeks into the training program, Krathvorn found himself sitting alone in his quarters at night, watching Cooper sleep. The puppy was curled in a small bed that the humans had provided, his paws twitching as he dreamed about whatever puppies dream about. Krathvorn had watched soldiers sleep before. He had stood guard over his troops, protecting them from danger through long nights on hostile worlds. But this was different. This was not duty. This was something softer, something he had no name for. He realized, sitting in the quiet darkness, that he would die to protect this small creature. Not because it was his job, not because honor demanded it, but simply because he loved Cooper and could not bear the thought of harm coming to him. The realization broke something inside Krathvorn, or maybe it healed something. He was not sure which. All he knew was that tears were running down his scarred gray face for the first time in 40 years, and Cooper had woken up and was climbing into his lap, whimpering softly and licking his hands. "I am sorry," Krathvorn whispered to the puppy. "I do not know what is wrong with me." Cooper did not care about apologies. Cooper just wanted to be close. He curled against Krathvorn's chest and stayed there until morning. The next day, Krathvorn asked to speak with Dr. Chen privately. They met in her office, a comfortable room filled with plants and photographs of dogs. Cooper came along, of course. He was always with Krathvorn now. "I need to understand something," Krathvorn said. "What is happening to me?" Dr. Chen smiled. "Can you describe what you're feeling?" "I feel too much. I feel things I do not have words for. I look at Cooper and my chest hurts, but it is not pain. I watch him play and I want to laugh even though nothing is funny. I think about losing him and I want to weep like a child." "Those are all normal things to feel when you love someone," Dr. Chen said gently. "I have never felt these things before, not even for my own soldiers, my own people. What is wrong with me?" Dr. Chen leaned forward. "There is nothing wrong with you, Commander. You have spent your life in a culture that taught you to suppress emotion, to see feeling as weakness. Dogs don't understand that. They don't care about cultural expectations or social norms. They just love openly, completely, without shame. When you bond with a dog, they teach you how to do the same." Krathvorn was silent for a long moment. Cooper had fallen asleep in his lap, snoring softly. "This is what you want us to bring back to our people," he said finally. "Not just dogs, but this ability to feel." "Yes," Dr. Chen said. "Dogs are wonderful companions, but they're also teachers. They show us how to be present, how to forgive, how to love unconditionally. These are lessons that every species needs, especially those that have been damaged by war." Krathvorn looked down at Cooper. The puppy stirred, opened one eye, and licked Krathvorn's hand before going back to sleep. "When I return to my people," Krathvorn said, "I will tell them the truth. I will tell them that a small earth creature has taught me more about strength than 50 years of battle. I will tell them that true courage is not the absence of feeling, but the willingness to feel everything." Dr. Chen nodded. "That is exactly what we hoped you would say." The graduation ceremony was held at the end of the 3 months. All 20 alien handlers had completed their training, and each one was partnered with a dog that had been carefully matched to their personality and needs. There were golden retrievers and German shepherds, Labradors and border collies, beagles and standard poodles. The ceremony was simple. Each handler stepped forward, received their official certification, and introduced their dog to the assembled audience. Representatives from the Galactic Council were present, along with journalists from 100 Worlds and Dr. Chen's entire team. When Krathvorn stepped forward with Cooper, the audience fell silent. The massive Drethani warrior stood before them with a chocolate Labrador sitting perfectly at his side. Cooper had grown in the past 3 months. He was no longer a wobbly puppy but a well-trained young dog with bright eyes and a constantly wagging tail. "I am Krathvorn of the Drethani," the commander said, his voice carrying across the field. "I have served in 3 wars. I have earned 17 medals for valor. I have been called a hero by my people. But I tell you now, the bravest thing I have ever done is learn to love this dog." He reached down and scratched Cooper behind the ears. The dog leaned into his touch, tail wagging. "I was broken," Krathvorn continued. "I did not know it, but I was. Years of war had turned my heart to stone. I thought this was strength. I was wrong. Strength is not the absence of feeling. Strength is the courage to feel everything and keep going. Cooper taught me that." He looked out at the audience, his eyes finding the Drethani representatives who had come to witness this moment. "I am taking Cooper home. I will show my people what I have learned, and I hope that soon every Drethani who needs healing will have a companion like him. We have been warriors for too long. It is time we learned to be something more." The applause that followed was thunderous, not just from the humans but from aliens of every species present. Even the Drethani representatives, who had been skeptical of the entire program, found themselves on their feet. Krathvorn did not care about the applause. He knelt down and buried his face in Cooper's fur, letting the dog's warmth and love fill the hollow places inside him. "Good boy," he whispered, "let us go home." The expansion of the interspecies companion program happened faster than anyone expected. Within 2 years of the first graduation ceremony, there were training facilities on 12 different worlds. Earth dogs were being bred in greater numbers than ever before, carefully matched with alien handlers who traveled from across the galaxy to learn. The impact was immediate and measurable. Military units with companion dogs showed significantly lower rates of combat stress syndrome. Hospital patients with dog companions recovered faster. Students with anxiety performed better on examinations. Workers in high-stress positions reported greater job satisfaction and fewer mental health crises. But the numbers only told part of the story. The real change was happening in individual hearts, one wagging tail at a time. On the Valanthi home world, Ambassador Crickstell had become something of a celebrity. She appeared on news programs with Saul by her side, talking about the importance of companion animals for mental health. She visited hospitals and military bases, showing soldiers and citizens alike how to interact with dogs. "They were afraid at first," she told Dr. Chen during one of their regular communications. "Many of my people had never seen a creature like Saul, but fear turned to curiosity, and curiosity turned to love. It always does with dogs." The Valanthi government had authorized a breeding program, using genetic stock from Earth carefully selected for compatibility with their species. The first Valantha-bred puppies were born 2 years after the program began, and demand far outstripped supply. "We have a waiting list of 3 million citizens," Crickstell reported. "Some have been waiting for over a year. They send me messages every day asking when their dog will arrive. It is the most requested government service in our history." Similar stories came from other worlds. The Drethani had integrated dogs into their military structure, with every unit now assigned at least one companion animal. Commander Krathvorn had been promoted to general and placed in charge of the entire program. He and Cooper, now a mature dog with gray in his muzzle, traveled constantly, training handlers and demonstrating the benefits of canine companionship. My people were skeptical at first, Krathvorn admitted during a galactic broadcast. We are warriors. We did not think we needed comfort animals, but dogs are not just comfort. They are warriors too in their own way. They fight for our hearts. They battle the darkness inside us, and they always win. Even the Corvani, who had been the most resistant to the program, eventually came around. Their scientists had conducted extensive studies on the physiological effects of canine companionship and found that dogs provided benefits they could not ignore. The presence of a dog reduces stress hormones by 47% in our species, announced Dr. Ferrixall, the lead researcher. Heart rate decreases by an average of 15%. Anxiety markers drop significantly. We cannot argue with the data. But for Dr. Sarah Chen, the most meaningful moments were not the statistics or the official reports. They were the individual stories that came to her from across the galaxy. A young Valanthi orphan who had not spoken since losing her family in the war finally found her voice while talking to a golden retriever named Sunny. A Drethani veteran who had planned to take his own life changed his mind when a German shepherd puppy was placed in his arms and looked at him with eyes full of trust. A Corvani scientist who had isolated herself for years due to severe social anxiety began attending parties and making friends after her beagle helped her feel safe in crowds. Each story was a miracle. Each story was proof that what they were doing mattered. Dr. Chen kept a collection of these stories in a special folder on her computer. On difficult days, when the politics of the program frustrated her or the logistics seemed impossible, she would read through them and remember why she had started this work. One story stood out among the rest. It came from a species humanity had only recently contacted, the Silthani. They were a reclusive people who communicated primarily through bioluminescent patterns on their skin. Their language was almost impossible for humans to understand, and they had shown little interest in interacting with other species. But a Silthani diplomat had observed a dog at an interspecies conference and requested more information. Dr. Chen had sent a detailed explanation along with several videos of dogs playing and interacting with their handlers. The response came 3 months later. It was a simple message, translated with difficulty by linguistic specialists. We understand now. The light patterns of these earth creatures speak to us. They say, "You are not alone, you are loved, you are home. We would like to join your program." Dogs did not communicate through bioluminescent patterns, of course. The Silthani were interpreting canine body language through their own perceptual framework. But that was the beauty of it. Dogs did not need to speak any particular language. Their love was universal. 5 years after the program began, Dr. Chen received an invitation that surprised her. The Galactic Council was holding a special session to discuss the future of interspecies relations, and they wanted her to give the keynote address. "Me," she said to her assistant, genuinely confused. "I'm a xenobiologist, not a diplomat." "You're the person who changed everything," her assistant replied. "They want to hear from you." The session was held on the Council's space station, a massive structure that orbited a neutral star. Representatives from over 300 species were present, more than had ever gathered for a single event. Dr. Chen stood at the podium, looking out at faces of every shape and color, knowing that many of them had been changed by the program she had created. Max was there too, of course. He was an old dog now, 12 years old, with white fur around his muzzle and a slower gait. But his eyes were still bright, and his tail still wagged when he met new friends. 15 years ago, Dr. Chen began, I wrote a paper that almost nobody read. I had this crazy idea that dogs could help aliens with their mental health. People laughed at me. They said it was impossible. They said alien minds were too different, that human concepts of companionship would not translate across species. She paused, looking down at Max, who was lying peacefully at her feet. They were wrong. They were wrong because they underestimated dogs, and they underestimated the capacity of all sentient beings to love and be loved. She took a deep breath. Today, there are over 50 million dogs living with alien companions across the galaxy. Every day, those dogs do something miraculous. They sit with someone who is afraid and make them feel safe. They play with someone who has forgotten how to be happy and remind them of joy. They stay with someone who thinks they are worthless and show them that they matter. Tears were forming in her eyes, but she did not wipe them away. I did not give the galaxy this gift. Humanity did not give the galaxy this gift. Dogs did. All we did was introduce them. She looked out at the assembly, at the Velanthi and Drethani and Corvani and Silthani and hundreds of other species, many of whom had companion dogs sitting beside them. We face many challenges as a galactic community. There will be conflicts and misunderstandings, disputes over resources and territory, cultural clashes and political struggles. But I believe we will overcome them. I believe this because I have seen what we are capable of when we open our hearts. I have seen warriors learn to cry. I have seen enemies become friends. I have seen the loneliest beings in the universe find family. She reached down and placed her hand on Max's head. The old dog looked up at her with the same loving eyes he had shown Ambassador Crickstel so many years ago. All of this because of dogs. All of this because we learned to share our oldest companions with the stars. That is the power of love. That is what dogs teach us. And as long as there are dogs in the galaxy, there will be hope. The applause began slowly, then built into something that shook the walls of the chamber. Representatives of 300 species rose to their feet, their voices and tentacles and appendages raised in celebration. Max wagged his tail at the noise. He did not understand what was happening, but he understood that his person was happy, and that was enough for him. That was always enough. 20 years had passed since the program began. Dr. Sarah Chen was older now, her hair gray and her steps slower. Max had died 3 years after the council's speech, peacefully and surrounded by love. She had another dog now, a gentle Bernese mountain dog named Star, but she still thought of Max every day. The galaxy had changed in ways she could barely comprehend. Dogs were everywhere now, not just as therapy animals but as integral parts of alien societies. They were loved and celebrated, included in art and literature and religious ceremonies. Some species had developed entire philosophies around the lessons dogs taught. The Drethani had been transformed the most dramatically. Once the most warlike species in the known galaxy, they had gradually shifted toward a culture of compassion and connection. General Krathvorn, now retired, was credited with leading this change. He and Cooper had traveled to every major Drethani world, demonstrating that strength and gentleness could coexist. Cooper had died at the age of 14, a good long life for a Labrador. Krathvorn had been devastated. He had withdrawn from public life for nearly a year, unable to face a world without his companion. But then a young Drethani soldier had approached him, asking for help. She had been assigned a new puppy and did not know how to bond with it. Krathvorn had looked at her, seen his own past confusion and fear in her eyes, and felt Cooper's spirit urging him forward. He had returned to work that day. Now, 7 years later, he was considered the greatest teacher in the companion program, having trained over 1,000 handlers personally. "Cooper taught me everything I know," he always said. "I am just passing on his lessons." The anniversary celebration was held on Earth, at the original training facility in Kansas. Representatives from every species in the program had gathered to mark 20 years since the first alien handlers had graduated. Dr. Chen was the guest of honor, though she had tried to decline. "This is not about me," she had protested. "It has never been about me." "It is about all of us," Ambassador Crickstel replied. Crickstel was very old now, her blue skin faded and wrinkled, but her eyes were still sharp. Saul had passed away years ago, but she had a new companion, a spirited golden retriever named Dawn. You gave us the chance to become better than we were. Let us thank you for that. The celebration was beautiful. Dogs of every breed ran across the Kansas fields, playing with handlers of every species. There were demonstrations and speeches, music and food, laughter and tears. Old friends reunited and new connections were made. Dr. Chen sat on a small hill overlooking the festivities, Star lying beside her with her head on Chen's lap. The old woman stroked her dog's fur and watched the impossible scene before her with quiet wonder. General Krathvorn found her there as the sun was setting. "May I join you?" he asked. "Of course." The massive Drethani settled onto the grass, his new companion, a border collie named Echo, immediately curling up against his side. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the colors of sunset paint the sky. "Do you remember what I said to you all those years ago?" Krathvorn asked finally, "when I was confused about what Cooper was doing to me." Chen smiled. "You asked what was wrong with you. And you said there was nothing wrong. You said I was learning to love." He paused, his eyes distant. "I did not believe you then. I thought love was a weakness, a vulnerability that enemies could exploit. I did not understand that it was the opposite, that love is the strongest thing in the universe." "Dogs taught you that?" Chen said. "Yes, dogs and time, and you." He turned to look at her. "I never properly thanked you for what you did, for giving me Cooper, for giving all of us this gift." Chen shook her head. "I just wrote a paper, the dogs did the work." "Do not diminish yourself. You saw something that no one else saw. You understood that our pain was not unique, that we all needed the same thing, no matter what species we belonged to. You gave us hope." Chen felt tears prickling at her eyes. She had spent 20 years receiving gratitude and praise, and it still made her uncomfortable. "I lost Max," she said quietly, "years ago now, and even with Star here I still miss him every day. Is that strange?" "No," Krathvorn said. "I still miss Cooper. I think I will miss him until I die. But that is not a burden. It is a gift. The pain of loss is the price of love, and love is worth any price." They fell silent again, watching the last light fade from the sky. Stars appeared overhead, distant suns around which alien worlds orbited, worlds that now contained dogs and the love they brought. "What do you think happens next?" Chen asked. "Where does the program go from here?" Krathvorn considered the question. "I think dogs will continue to change us. Every generation that grows up with them will be different from the one before. Kinder, perhaps, more connected, more willing to see the good in others." "Do you really believe that?" "I have to believe it. Otherwise, what has it all been for?" He smiled, an expression that would have been impossible for him 20 years ago. "I know the galaxy is still full of problems. There are still conflicts, still suffering, still beings who hurt each other. But there is also more love now than there was before. That has to count for something." "It counts for everything," Chen said. Down on the field below, a Corvani child was playing with a beagle puppy. The child was laughing, a sound that echoed across the evening air, pure and joyful. The puppy was barking and wagging and bringing endless happiness to a small being who had probably never known anything so wonderful. Chen watched them and felt her heart fill with something too large for words. "Do you know what I love most about dogs?" she said. "Tell me." "They don't know they're changing the galaxy. They don't know they're healing species or ending conflicts or making history. They just know that someone needs love and they give it. Every single time, without hesitation, without expecting anything in return. They just love." Krathvorn nodded, "The purest form of existence." "Yes, and in learning from them we become more like them, better versions of ourselves." The stars grew brighter as full darkness settled over the Kansas plains. Somewhere in the crowd below, music started playing, and beings of a dozen species began to dance with their dogs. Chen stood slowly, her old bones protesting. Star rose with her, loyal and attentive. "Shall we join them?" she asked Krathvorn. The general rose as well, Echo instantly at his heel. "It would be my honor." They walked down the hill together, an old human woman and an ancient Drethani warrior, their dogs trotting beside them, all of them heading toward the music and the light and the celebration of something beautiful. The interspecies companion program would continue long after they were gone. Dogs would keep being bred and trained and sent to the stars. They would keep changing hearts and healing souls and teaching beings across the galaxy how to love. It was the greatest gift humanity had ever given, and it had started with a simple truth that dogs had known all along. Love was not complicated. Love was not difficult. Love was just a wagging tail and a warm presence and eyes that said you are not alone. That was enough. That was everything. In the end, Earth dogs became standard issue for alien mental health support galaxy-wide, not because of policies or programs or scientific studies. They became standard issue because they worked. They worked because love works. And love, as dogs had been demonstrating for thousands of years, could save anyone. Even alien civilizations that had forgotten how to feel. Even broken warriors who thought they were beyond saving. Even a lonely galaxy that needed nothing more than a friend who would stay by their side and wag their tail and remind them, every single day, that they were worthy of love. Good dogs, the best dogs, the dogs that changed everything.